Yeah, all right. Makeup.
Done that before.
That's not Scott.
Okay. Here it is. Still got 6:15 on. There's Scott. Right on time. Didn't even right 10 seconds early.
You want to pass that down?
You still are welcome to participate in the hearings in case something gets continued and one of the regular members can't make the continued meeting. It's still important that you keep abreast of what's happening and ask whatever questions you need to ask during the hearing, so they're answered. Okay, having said that, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have one item on the agenda. It's ZBA hearing number 2018-04. Will the secretary please read the legal notice?
Legal notice, East Windsor Zoning Board of Appeals. East Windsor Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Monday, September 10th, 2018 at 7 p.m. at the East Windsor Town Hall, 11 Rice Street, Broadbrook, Connecticut, to hear the following application. ZBA 2018-04, application of Newbury Road Enterprise for property located at 68 Newbury Road for a variance of section 816.1.B.3. Minimum standards for composting, wood chipping facilities to allow reduction in landscape buffer from the abutting properties from 100 feet to 25 feet. M1 zone, map 93, block 19, lot 6. Interested persons may appear and be heard, or written communications will be received. Copies of the above application on file with Planning and Zoning Office and the Town Clerk in the Town Hall. It was in the Journal Enquirer Wednesday the 29th and September 5th.
Okay, the way this is going to work is we're going to have the applicant first come up and present their application, followed by board questions, and then we'll open it up to the public for any questions, comments, or anything. Again, this is for a variance. I just want to go over what the statutes require of a variance, because it is requiring varying zoning regulations that were established by legislative authorities. The Planning and Zoning Commission. A 4-to-1 vote is necessary to pass any request for a variance. So even if a variance is 3 and 2 in favor, that means the variance would fail, according to, and that's all from the Connecticut General Statutes. Again, a variance from the regulations need to show that special conditions and circumstances exist that are suited to the land structure or building involved are not applicable to other land structures or buildings in the area, that those special circumstances relate to the condition of the land or parcel, that the special conditions and circumstances are not related to the circumstances of the applicant and have not resulted from the actions of the applicant or the predecessor in title, and also that the special circumstances constitute exceptional difficulty or unusual hardship not of the applicant's making and are not solely a financial detriment. That literal interpretation of these provisions of these regulations would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district, and that the granting the variance requested will not confer upon the applicant any special privilege or use that is denied by these regulations to other land structures or buildings in the same districts, that these circumstances justify the granting of the variance, and that the variance if granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure, and that the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of these regulations, will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. So that's all from the Connecticut state statutes. So with that, if the applicant wishes to come forward, identify themselves, please. When you do come up, identify yourself by name, and if you're from town, address. We do have a new recording secretary here. So.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to set this up in any particular location, or?
If you can set it up somewhere where some people, like sideways maybe, some people from the audience may be able to also see, as long as we all can see it. And everyone else can.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Guy Hesketh. I'm a licensed professional engineer with F.A. Hesketh and Associates. Our corporate offices are located in East Granby, Connecticut. And I'm here this evening representing Newbury Road Enterprises and an application that we have before you this evening. I think you're all probably familiar with the parcel. I've got a map of it right here. The partial map of the parcel itself, focusing on the area where the current operation is, which is delineated by the orange dashed line that you see there.
Can you turn that a little bit more this way? I'm sorry. Thanks.
I give support to the board to see it, not for
That's good, thank you.
the people can move on the other side if they can.
Is that okay there?
That's fine.
So the parcel is located at 68 Newbury Road, as your record indicates. It's map 093-19006. The parcel as a whole, quickly here. This is a map that was done by Rachel Newport back in 2008, which I believe was the basis of a map that was done for an initial site plan application that the applicant had back in 2008. But this shows the entire parcel itself, coming along here, that comes all the way out to the east in this direction here. It has quite a lot of frontage on Newbury Road, which goes right here, and Craftsman Road is down here off the map itself. So this is the A2 survey that we submitted as part of the record that was certified by Rachel's A2 survey. On this map also is shown, you'll notice that there's some wetland features that are located here. And these wetland features are located on this side of the drainage feature on the site, and then these blobs that are located here. These were delineated by George Logan back when the initial site plan application was done. It was submitted as part of a record on file with the town's clerk's office. So this is the wetland delineation that we're showing on the plan. Before you, the plan that shows the current operation.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
On that map, what's this line? Is that a wetland delineation?
Yeah, that's a wetland delineation too. There's a, I believe it's an intermittent water course, and I believe the area to the east of that.
Is wetlands?
Yeah, at least a portion of that is. And I'll show you, I've got a copy of the CROG map here. Now this map, it's a useful tool for a couple of reasons. One, it shows the delineation of surrounding parcels. It also has photo imagery on there, so you can kind of get a visual for everything. It shows the roadways, for example, here's Craftsman Road, here's Newbury Road. And they have on here approximate locations of wetlands that are based on soil types. That's what you see as these purple blobs that you see here. So that kind of represents wetlands in the general vicinity. Now these wetlands are not the official map or prescribed wetlands for the town itself, but it just gives you an idea of generally where wetlands are located. On our site, which is located here, you can see there's a feature here, and then you see a blob down here. I think that's the one you're talking about, Mr. Geiner. And there's another little area down here, wetlands on the site. When those were field delineated, same general features show up. You have the blob that's here, you have another finger wetlands here, and then the wetlands that are located on the bottom of the site. So similar shape to the CROG map, but these are more precise because these were actually field delineated on the ground by soil scientists to accurately depict these wetlands. So that's what we got located here. Now the current operation is, as I mentioned before, outlined in this orange dashed line. That's the limits of the mulch operation that Mr. Dearborn has. And if you look at the map relative to the balance of this parcel, there's a significant wetlands community located to the east of this parcel. Now, when he got permitted for this original operation several years ago, we had to go before the Inland Wetlands Commission. We have a permit for these impacts that are here along the periphery. We also got permitted for the construction of the farm pond, which is located down here in the southern portion of the parcel. And as part of our overall review and approval process for both Inland Wetlands and the Planning and Zoning Commission, we did an extensive stormwater management plan that incorporated treatment of runoff from the operations area, capturing that runoff, treating it in a water quality basin, and then having a secondary treatment in the farm pond prior to its discharge. That sizing of that basin was reviewed by your engineering department, planning and zoning staff, wetlands staff, the commissions. These were all done to basically provide what they call best management practices, to provide for treatment of that water. Now, this pond was constructed as an irrigation pond for the farming activity. If you notice, when you drive by, you'll see corn planted here, and then a good portion, almost the entire portion of the eastern portion of this parcel is actively farmed. This is to provide for irrigation during dry season for that pond, for the agricultural activities. But it's also supplemented to provide for some water that's also using the water in the water quality basin for moisture control in the mulch operation that he has. So sort of a recycle process. The water, rain comes down, it gets cleansed in the pond, gets reused on the site, gets treated again and reused. So when we went before the commission, we did receive a site plan and special use permit, again, showing the outline in this, the orange dashed area. And that approval was for operations, but at the time of the approval was prior to the promulgation of the regulation of have under section 816 now. Steve was permitted with a 75-foot vegetative buffer, but a 100-foot buffer to the operations area. So the buffer that he had was a 75-foot vegetative buffer, and then a 25-foot access pathway, I guess, for lack of a better terminology. The reason for the pathway is around the operations, the fire marshal, in his review of the operations, of course, concern for public safety, wanted to have unlimited access around the entire perimeter of the operation so that their public safety would be preserved. So in his operation, a 25% access pathway is provided around the mulching operation. What I show in the rust-colored line is what we would be proposing for the limits of the operation area, which would include a 25-foot vegetative buffer and then an additional 15-foot for the access strip around the perimeter. So even though your regulations, we're requesting variance from a 100-foot vegetative buffer to 25-foot vegetative buffer, but keeping in mind that we're already permitted for 75-foot vegetative buffer. So we're not asking for a 75-foot reduction. We're asking 50-foot reduction to the vegetative buffer, but to the operations area from 100 feet to 40 feet. So historically, we went through the Planning and Zoning Commission. Just a little background. When we first went to permit the site, there was a lot of discussion as to what is the use, and is there a similar use in your zoning regulations that would cover this type of operation? Because your zoning regulations at the time did not address a mulch operation. And essentially what a mulch operation is a clean wood waste is brought into the site. It's processed by a tub grinder. The material is stacked, and they call it a whitewood. The first grinding is called a whitewood. They take the whitewood, they stack that material, they let it age for a certain amount of time. Then, when it starts to ferment, they reprocess it a second time in the tub grinder, and then stack it again. And that's what, through that process, the natural degradation takes that wood product and converts it into mulch. It has a very malty smell. It's actually a nice smell. I like it. Those piles are located throughout the site, and then as the product is being sold at a wholesale level, that material is loaded up and removed from the site. What the Planning and Zoning Commission struggled with was to try to determine what's a similar use, and the only thing that they could sort of relate it to would be a earth removal type of operation, or sand and gravel operation, which are permitted under your regulations currently, and then at the time of our application were permitted. The two processes are completely different. A mining or sand and gravel operation generates totally different emissions, significantly more fugitive emissions than a mulch operation. Makes more noise, has more processes involved in it. But they were sort of hung up on the 100-foot setback from property lines, which is what your regulation at the time required for a earth removal operation. So in discussions with them, they allowed a 75-foot vegetative buffer and a 25-foot perimeter access to make up the 100-foot buffer. So that's what we were permitted to. What we're requesting, as I mentioned, is a reduction from the current 75 feet to 25 feet. Again, realizing the operation would be 40 feet from the property line. Regarding why we believe that the variance would be in order, we looked through your regulations under section 903.3, and we believe that we meet those requirements. As Jose had indicated, that the land, we have to recognize that there are certain factors that would allow for a hardship. We believe we have a legitimate hardship, and I'd like to explain what those are. Under 903.3A, the land is encumbered by a significant amount of wetlands. And those wetlands include a large portion of wetlands in the center portion and another portion on the eastern edge. And the location of those wetlands in the field delineated are exactly almost coincidental with the eastern boundary of the operation. So any expansion to the east would not be feasible or prudent, and would frankly likely not be allowed by the Inland Wetlands Commission. When we received the approvals from the Wetlands Commission, they sort of drew a line in the sand here and told us that we don't want any more disturbance of the wetlands in this area. So we respected that, and this ended up, they did allow us to have some minor impacts to the wetlands along the perimeter, but those wetlands truly create a hardship. They're not applicable to most of the land in the area. There's a few parcels, I think this parcel here is a finger of wetlands that divides it, but most of the parcels of the area have small portions of wetlands that don't bisect the parcel to prevent interconnection of development under, so we believe we are unique in that aspect. These wetlands were not created by the applicant. They were created by Mother Nature through processes that involve maybe thousands of years of processes to result in combination of issues of drainage patterns and with the soils themselves. Wetlands form over time. 20 to 12,000 years ago, glaciers deposited the soils that we have in the state of Connecticut. This area here was further enhanced by Lake Hitchcock along the Connecticut River Valley and the deposition of lacustrine deposits. A combination of those results in the soil that we have. These are natural features, they're not man-made features. These wetland soils are natural. They were not created by the applicant. The presence of the wetlands presents a hardship to growth, and it's not of the applicant's making, essentially. He'd like to expand his business, he really can't do so in this direction because of the inland wetlands. He has one small area of the site that would allow him to do some expansion, and that's what he's looking for a request to do. The reduction in that buffer from 125 foot would allow the applicant to utilize more of his parcel. And that would be in substantial conformance with many of the other uses that are found in the general area. I've got a picture of a Google map shown here. And you'll notice if you look at the other facilities that are located around the site, you can see that they're pretty well developed. If you look at the property lines that are presented, overlaid on the CROG map, you can see that most of the neighbors that are adjoining him have activities that are well within that 25-foot setback area, all around the site. So in the general area, these industrial and manufacturing operations are utilizing their parcel to the fullest extent. And the applicant's only asking the same, that he be treated like the rest of the neighbors and be able to utilize his facility that are in harmony with properties in the same district. The granting of this variance would not confer upon the applicant any special privileges, wouldn't have any advantage over anybody else in the area, and it wouldn't impact any of the other neighbors. We believe that the circumstances justify the granting of the variance, and that 25-foot buffer would make it possible for the reasonable use of the applicant's land. Now, there are side yard setbacks in this zone that are set at 20 feet. If you were to build a 40-foot building, you could build a 40-foot building right 20 feet from the property line. What we're asking is for the location of an access road to the 25 feet of the property and another 15 feet before the beginning of the storage pile for mulch operations. And we don't believe that the granting of the variance will be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public. I know there's some concern of property values. I saw that the applicant, someone in opposition to the applicant had submitted a letter indicating that the reduction would cause a hardship for him from the standpoint of being able to lease his property. I'd like to submit for the record, we did consult our own real estate expert, and he opines that what we're proposing will not have a detrimental impact to property values in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
I mean, we got to remember that the existing operation is there now. So it's not like we're proposing something new, even though it is a permitted operation, but we're looking at the expansion of that operation is very small. Again, if you look at the overall area of the operation and then the small area that we're looking at to expand it, it's not a significant increase. What we propose is the operation would actually remain the same safety procedures would be implemented, as I indicated, from a public health and safety perspective. The fire marshal reviewed this. He's okay with the operation. He doesn't see any significant issues or any other safety issues associated with it. As long as that perimeter road is made available, and that sort of thing would be what the applicant would do is maintain the outside perimeter road. Interestingly enough, we were trying to determine what would really be a reasonable setback for something like this type of an operation, mulch operation. Connecticut DEP doesn't really have anything published. If you search for the towns in the area to see if they have any requirements for mulch operations, East Windsor is, I think, the only one that I can find in the state of Connecticut. But we did find something for the state of New York. Under 6 NYCRR Part 361-4, they have a requirements for mulch operations. That's a neighboring state, so their operations are similar. Climatic conditions and other things would be similar to Connecticut. In their regulations, they have a minimum horizontal separate distance to the property line of 25 feet. And again, that's to their operations. We would be proposing on the order of, we would be proposing 40 feet to their operations. Pennsylvania has a requirement under WMG M015, which is these regulations are specific to mulch operations. They have a minimum 50-foot setback to processing operations for mulch. So though we would have 40 foot to the edge of a mulch pile, we would do any processing within certainly more than 50 foot. We believe that these are reasonable setbacks for a mulch operation, and we're submitting these for your consideration. I would like to also state for the record that we did do the notification to the abutters. I believe that the copies of the certificates of mailing were submitted for the record to staff. I do have the original of those here. That I'd like to submit for the record. And then also, I'd like to also testify that. I'll go to the secretary, Mr. Chapman. And then also, we did post a requisition.
You got the file? Yeah, you can stick it in the bucket.
We did post the requisite sign as required by your
Hand it
regulations.
to staff.
Absolutely, thank you. At this time, I'd certainly be glad to answer any questions or anything you might have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Question is, that area that you've got you've been permitted for wood chipping, how large an area is that?
This area here,
Yeah.
I'd have to take a look and measure that. I can't really answer that. My guess would be,
You got a total acreage of 26. So is that half that, 26? Or
it's
13?
a little less than half.
Okay, so 10 acres or so?
Yeah, it's
10 acres.
Huh?
It's not 10 acres.
That part?
I think it's less than that, but it's not 10 acres. I can get a measurement for you while we're delivering it. As you do.
I'll just-
Yeah, I can,
just-
from a scale perspective, we're looking at, this is a 40 scale map, so 100 feet. So you're looking at 500 foot by probably 500 by 500 maybe. Roughly. Seat of the pants, everything.
Now, could I see that map again?
About 6 or 7 acres.
All right, the CROG map, just quickly, just to sort of kind of compare it. So I assume that what you have on the first map that you showed is, those wetlands were actually delineated in the field by soil scientists?
Yeah, these were delineated by George Logan in 2007, I believe it was. And he's a certified soil scientist.
So the town map actually showed more wetlands? Or not, does it?
This would be the CROG map, so I'm
Yeah,
not
the
sure. if
CROG
this is
map,
close.
whatever the GIS appears to have much more wetlands than what was actually delineated in the field. Am I correct in assuming that, or is-
Yeah, it may be slightly more.
All right.
This distance here, it's about the same. So it might be maybe 20% less in that immediate area, but not knowing what the delineations are in that portion. When this was delineated, they did the fingers that were here and then a portion of this wetland. They didn't go further out into that direction, so.
Fair enough.
But yeah, they're substantially similar.
Okay, I guess we'll start from that end, work our way up. For any questions from the board?
I'm good.
Mr. Yosky? Mr. Noble?
The northwest corner of the lot, where the road, the access road is going to come around, on the CROG map, it shows a lot of pink, and I know just from driving by, it's a real wet area. The runoff from that area, because I would assume if you're going to put an access road, you're going to fill all that.
No, we're not doing any access over here.
The access road doesn't go around,
No, the
around
access
front,
road-
it just comes in from
Yeah,
the
here's-
lot?
Yeah, here's Newberry Road. The access is only around the perimeter of the operation.
All right, so it
There's
just
already
goes,
existing
just goes
access.
from the
Corn
field,
field is in that area.
so you're not touching that
No.
cornfield? All right.
Yeah.
We're not going any closer to the road. The cornfield is going to stay the same. We don't want to touch that.
All right, so any,
Yeah, regarding these wetlands here, if I can interject for a second.
Yeah.
This obviously shows a wetland finger here that actually is located underneath some buildings and some other properties here. This was probably taken from some soil survey that probably was post-World War II. soil type.
1950s probably. Yeah,
That's
aerial
usually what they
aerial
did.
interpretation.
Guys got out of the Army and they ended up doing these high-intensity mapping. And that's probably what this resulted in. So obviously, these have been disturbed. You can see there's probably a figure that went through here and now when these got built.
Right.
Probably pre-wetlands it was filled.
and I know where Munich is, it's all pavement in between there up until probably, I don't know how many feet from the property line, but if
Yeah, that's
if we
all.
do approve the 25-15, are there any rules for any drainage to go in there?
Well, the
At all, or
currently.
what is there presently?
Well, currently, the little bit of the field in here actually drains in this direction, but we wouldn't be touching that at all.
Right,
The site itself, when we did our site plan, this was all designed so that all of the runoff went in this direction.
goes across?
Yeah, so what, basically all we're looking at is a little bit of addition here, so that would be graded so that it all goes in that same direction. Right now, the runoff comes down, there's a swale that gets picked up here, that comes down, picks up a couple culverts, exhibit
Yeah.
a water quality basin. So that would be maintained.
So it would be natural flow heading east off.
Yeah, that's the general flow trend is in that direction, so we would maintain that direction of flow. So there wouldn't be any alteration of that.
Okay. No further questions?
I guess my issue would be, there seems to be a large area of cornfields. What's to stop you from carving out a little area of the cornfield to be able to use for the storage?
Wetlands.
That whole area? 'Cause
Which area you pointed out, tell me up there.
It looks like there's the two spots.
Just identify for the again, if you.
Steve Dearborn, owner of the 68.
Yeah, maybe you're talking about something in here?
Yeah, in that vast area to the right of those two
Yeah,
wetlands.
what wetlands requires you to do under Connecticut statute is they protect not only inland wetlands resource themselves, but what they call an upland review area. So if you have any activity within 100 feet of those wetlands, you're required to go in and get a permit to have an operation or to have any disturbance within that area. What this would result in is having to construct some type of a roadway up in this area here, having some storage in here, and then the whole situation with stormwater management becomes an issue, because we'd have to look at capture and treatment of that stormwater. So the impact it would have would all certainly be within the upland review area of wetlands. And we're looking at, based on our past experience with your Inland Wetlands Commission, is they really don't want to see this activity expanded out into the county impact of those wetlands or the upland review areas of those wetlands. So,
I'd like to say something too. You know, we're looking for that little strip right there, that's all we're looking for. It's sandy, silty land, probably the best land on the whole 26 acres. Okay? I think it total amounts to about 1.5 acres more of area for me to store wood. Okay? I know you have a petition there. Some of the things on that petition are just insane. When these piles are there, they do not create dust. They stifle the noise. You cannot hear or see the machines on the other side running. Okay? Some of the things that I read said things like, it's vibrating my industrial building. You can stand next to the machine and not even see that stuff.
let's let the commission talk, and we can answer questions.
All right, well, I'm just addressing the, you know, certain things.
Tom?
I have no question.
Scott?
So the cornfield right in front of Newberry Road, that is all wetlands? That's
No.
what you're saying? No?
Oh, this area here?
Yeah, up front.
There's a small piece here that is, yeah.
There's a small piece, okay.
Soil type.
Again, if you look at this, and to the exact extent and limit of that, we would have to determine, but as you can see, historically, this was wet, and
Yep.
obviously, when these two parcels here were built, those were impacted, so those would no longer be defined as wetland, because once you import soils and fill or alter wetland, it becomes what they call made land, so it doesn't fall into the statutes of wetlands on the state of Connecticut. There's probably a portion of it here that, in that corner.
Would be wetlands.
That would be considered wetland soil. Now, Connecticut defines wetlands as poorly drained or very poorly drained soil, so it doesn't necessarily mean that there's cattails and other things growing out of it. In some cases, you'll see that, but in this case, that's probably not the case. And the statutes do allow for agricultural activities in wetland soils. It's one of the few things that are allowed under state statute. So you'll see a lot of farms that actually will plow and farm their lands and grow croplands and stuff that are actually wetlands. That would be protected if you didn't have that limit use of the wetlands.
And I don't really think we want to stand behind, especially the road.
No, I agree. I was
I
just,
think the way that road looks, it looks nice against the road. We want to change that.
That's how I felt too. I don't want to go any closer to Newberry Road with my operation.
It looks like you plan to plant certain type of flowering tree along the road as well?
That was the original, proposal back in 2008.
Okay.
And since then, he's been farming the land. I think he's been doing that yearly since then.
And are we 100% in compliance right now with everything wetlands and the way the facility is being used?
Absolutely.
Yeah, again, for the record, as part of the special permit application, and this is not unusual for planning zoning, it's additional special permit. He's required to get a zoning certificate yearly.
Yep.
And that requires him to submit an as-built drawing to demonstrate that the pile or the minimum distance and that the facility's in conformance. Now, a facility like this is dynamic in nature, so the piles move depending on which area he's processing, whether he sells product, he brings in more product. So every July for the last, I think it's 4 or 5 years, we've had a surveyor go out, survey the property, submit an A2 certified as-built drawing that he's in compliance, and that's submitted as part of the zoning permit. So if I'm not mistaken, Matt, I believe one was submitted in July, or beginning of August or July of this year, and I believe it is in compliance. I'll let staff address that.
So this map was dated August 23rd, is that based on the latest as-built?
That map, yeah, that was the latest as-built was utilized for the base map for that, but the as-built was actually July.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But this reflects that as-built.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We don't want it. Any other questions? I don't know whether you could answer it, Mr. Dearborn can answer. I think probably Mr. Dearborn should answer that one. Maybe he'll wait till he gets back. And again, or maybe, you know, did Mr. Dearborn have the wetlands delineated? Or
Yes, that was in 2007 or 8, I believe it was. There's a reference on the A2 survey that you have that references those. I can look real quick. Steve, you had George Logan delineate the wetlands back in 2007, was it?
Yeah, pretty much. George is the only guy that did any of that.
And when was the property purchased?
I'm sorry, 2006. Wetlands taken from Apple Wetlands as depicted by George Logan in January 2006 and filed in the town clerk's office. That's a reference on Rachel's plan.
And the other question I have, when did you purchase the property?
Actually, I purchased it in 2007.
And were you aware of the presence of wetlands? There were maps on there.
Well, I didn't know at that time, but I actually got permission from the Nobles to go in there and clear it, so I could get it ready for a corn crop that spring before I even signed the papers that I owned it. They said, well, what if you don't buy it? I said, well, I guess I cleared your land for nothing. And then when I started all of this, well, now we had to go to wetlands and find out where everything was.
That was my question. Anyone else have questions? I'll open up to the public.
No.
Okay, well, right now we'll have it open up to the public. Anyone want to speak, come forward and either speak for or against, or you're welcome to ask questions that the applicant may be able to answer. It's also permitted.
Good evening. For the record, my name's Megan Hope. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Altrin, Pearson and Glastonbury. I represent Mr. Jerry Wilcox. He's the owner of 50 Newberry Road. Jerry, can you just point out where that is on the map?
Yes.
To the board.
I'm Jerry Wilcox.
So his property is located to the southwest of the property that's subject to this variance.
This is my property here, goes around here, in here. It bordered the Dearborn property, like this here. This all borders me here, all around, and runs out and connects to Newberry Road.
Thanks, Jerry. Before we begin, I want to note for the record that Mr. Noble is sitting on the board. It's our understanding that in January of 2007, it was the Noble family that sold the property that is subject of this variance tonight. I did want to submit the warranty deed. I know Jose was just talking about this. Showing the transfer, I've also attached the property field card to the back, so I'll submit that for the record. There was a financial benefit that resulted to members of the Noble family. The sales price was $950,000. Based on this, we respectfully request that Mr. Noble recuse himself from these proceedings. Case law dictates that I'm required to state that on the record and raise the issue at the public hearing so that my claim isn't waived if an appeal is taken on an approval of the variance. So I just wanted to put that onto the record. Seeing that, I don't know if you want to make any comments or proceed.
Well, it wasn't me, it was my family. I received no money from the sale of the property. I don't see a direct connection, but I mean, even my father, Raymond Noble, we do border the Dearborn farm down in the east end, but he took a share from the Noble farm and never received money from Steve Dearborn either. He took a 4-acre lot and cut it off of the property prior to the sale.
Well, I think what our point is that it is your dad. He does border the property, and we feel strongly that it would be right for you to step aside on that. Consider the influence.
Sure. And we want to put on the record, it's always the commissioner's choice if he recuses himself or not. So I just wanted to put it on the record, preserve my right during an appeal, but obviously it's your choice. So I'm happy to proceed.
I'd like to stay on the board. I don't see a direct connection to it, and I'm not. I'm just looking at the facts here, so I have no monetary interest in either way.
So I'm going to keep going with my presentation. Mr. Wilcox is opposed to the board granting this requested variance. As you know, section 903.3 states that in order for the board to grant the variance, you need to find on the record that all 9 subsections are met. Mr. Dearborn has suggested in his application and the testimony tonight by Mr. Hesketh that the wetlands on his site are that special circumstance that are peculiar to this land in particular, and that's why he needs the variance. He suggests he needs to expand into the 100-foot buffer because wetlands prevent him from expanding to other areas of the site on the east. We believe this is incorrect for 2 reasons. Firstly, the applicant owns the parcel, it's 26 acres. A significant portion of the site is not wetlands. I did print out from the town GIS, similar to the crowd map, but slightly different. It's a 2016 aerial photo, also with deep layers with wetlands. So I did have enough copies for everybody here. Do you want to just pass that out? As you can see, there is room in the areas that aren't highlighted as wetlands for the operation to expand to. There's additional road access on Newberry to enter the other area of the site if they don't want to cross the wetlands. They have gotten a wetlands permit before, and I don't believe they've attempted to get a new wetlands permit for expanding into additional areas on the site. Secondly, Mr. Dearborn suggests that they need to reduce the buffer because the wetlands are an impediment to him expanding his operation. However,